Being alive versus being dead, part three. Now, yeah, this stuff is just very, very deep. And see, God is, God the Father and Jesus are both like really speaking to me concerning this stuff right here. you know, um, this stuff is very real. It's very real. It's very deep. And this stuff is just eternal stuff. It is. And what you got to understand is, you know, this stuff is deep. And see, being alive, man, just really focusing on that in this particular part of this stuff. Yeah, being alive, people, you got to realize that majority of people are not alive concerning spiritually, is what I'm saying. And it doesn't matter if they have certain health and all that stuff. Majority of beings are just, just doing different things and moving around and all that stuff, and this stuff. But see, they're not alive though spiritually, and they're not alive in God, and in the spirit of God. They're not alive concerning the spirit realm either. They're not a part of the spirit realm. Excuse me. And they're not alive. And see, the thing about this is Satan is aware of this matter, people. So that's what you must understand about this. Satan is aware of this. And see, man, this stuff is deep because being alive, this stuff is very much deeper than just, the natural, people. It's deeper than the natural. It's deeper than the stuff with you people. And many people are not alive, and they're not, is what you gotta understand concerning in the spirit, is what you gotta understand. And a lot of people are just moving around and doing whatever they do, you crazy people out there too, you people done. That's what I'm telling you, because what I'm telling you is that a majority of people are not alive. It doesn't matter if they're moving around. It doesn't matter if they have certain health or anything, because they're not alive in the spirit and in the spirit of God, and they're not in God. So they're definitely just not alive, is what I'm telling you. And the people who are alive, once again, souls and beings that are alive, they're a part of the spirit realm. They're a part of God. Spirit, God's spirit, is what I'm trying to say. And, they belong to God, all this deep stuff. Relationship with God, once again, a part of the spirit realm. All this deep stuff. That's what you gotta understand. All this deep stuff. They're a part of God's kingdom, spiritually aware. Spiritually aware of the enemy's kingdom too, of Satan's kingdom too. They're aware of that too, because of God, because of God, because of their true intentions, their pure souls. These are the beings that are alive, so you're a pure soul hearing this and all that stuff. Yeah, you are alive. And, all glory to God, because it has nothing to do with you just, just moving around and all that stuff. It's deeper than that. What you gotta understand is you're alive in God, and in the spirit. You're aware of what's going on, what's taking place, and also being alive too is like you're not deceived by what's going on concerning I want to say the enemy's deception. Now like I said, this has nothing to do with being perfect or anything, but you're just alive when it comes to in the spirit, and you know what's going on. You're aware of you're aware spiritually of God and his judgment. You're aware, and all this deep stuff. That's being alive, people. And once again, you're part of the spirit realm, all this deep stuff, and see, majority of beings are not alive. Is what you gotta understand. They're under God's wrath, they're under God's judgment, and majority of beings are on their way to hell. I'm just being very real. It's not a game with this stuff, people. You gotta understand that to be spiritually minded is a very real matter, and also being spiritually alive. You gotta be in God's spirit, have God's spirit, and being alive too, and spiritually alive as well. Is dealing with God's presence, people. All that deep stuff too. Is dealing with being alive as well. So this has nothing to do with just being in decent health or whatever you want to say. This has nothing to do with just seeing people walking around and God wakes up these people, all these beings, all this stuff. It doesn't mean they're a part of heaven either. So you gotta understand that stuff. I'm just being led by the spirit, people. You gotta understand, So you emotional people, you won't even you won't even understand these matters. Is what I'm telling you. But everybody's not alive. It doesn't matter what you people be thinking concerning the surface of all the stuff. That's what I'm saying. Majority of people are not alive. They're not. That's what I'm telling you. They're not alive in God. They're not alive in God's spirit. They don't have God's spirit. They don't have a relationship with God. They don't care about God. So they're definitely not alive, people. They're moving around, and see, it's just very scary too, because, you're alive and all this stuff, and, you have the long journey and all this deep stuff, it doesn't even matter. What I'm saying is, you're very, once again, you're very, you can be very up in age and, have a very long life, long journey, even if you live, according to Jesus's return and the rapture, you live that long and you're still not alive though, and you will be missing the rapture too. You won't even be a part of it if you're not alive, people, in the spirit with God. You won't even be a part of that. And see, God knows his people concerning all that stuff. So that's all I can say. But he's just leading me to say these things. And see, it's deep because, like I said, being alive, you're a part of the spirit realm. You bear witness with things that are going on in the spirit realm. Many, many things, you're sensitive in the spirit. All this deep stuff is dealing with being alive, people. That's what you gotta understand. It has nothing to do with you, doing whatever you people be doing. Majority of people, like I said, this has nothing to do with being perfect and all that stuff. No, it don't. What I'm telling you though is that being alive is deeper than the surface. It's deeper than just being in decent health and all that stuff. Because majority of you, you're not alive. Is what I'm telling you. You're not alive. On a spiritual level, you're not. That's what I'm telling you. You're not. And this stuff is deep, and then versus being dead. See, that's what I'm saying. This stuff is deep. So if you people not spiritual, you're not even going to understand this stuff. You're carnal minded. You're already a part of being dead too. See, this stuff is not a game, because you people, you're not spiritual. You people reject these matters, and okay. But understand this too. Like I said, this stuff is not a game. That's all I'm trying to say too. But versus being dead. See, just getting into this, like the people and beings and the deceased, you people who consider these certain people dead and all this stuff, they're not dead. They're not. You got to understand too. They're not dead. They're in the realm of the spirit. Some beings are still part of the earth realm, roaming around due to them being under God's punishment. Others are roaming around pending. Some souls that were wicked and are wicked and not a part of heaven and paradise. They're just in the earth realm doing different things until God truly just eternally punishes them with pretty much hell and damnation, And then some souls go immediately to hell too, all that deep stuff. So it's not a game, you know. I keep telling you, God and the devil talk about this stuff too. You know, they're already talking about this stuff with souls, people, eternity, all this stuff. Eternity is real. And see, a lot of you people, you know, you're you're just outside of this stuff because you people get caught up with the surface, you know, rest in peace and all this stuff. Okay, but understand this. They're not dead. That's what you gotta understand. And see, these certain souls are amongst the earth realm. And see, if they were a pure soul and all that deep stuff, I'm telling you, like they may be doing or fulfilling a specific task for God too. You know, I've already mentioned this in many forms, but see, I'm being led by the Spirit concerning this stuff. You know, if they're deceased though, and you know, just not a part of the earth realm, then they may be doing certain things according to God's will of what they're supposed to be doing and what they bear witness with. If they're a pure soul, and then some other pure souls, they're just a part of paradise. You know, according to what they've done and who they are will determine. What I'm trying to say is what will determine what part of paradise they're a part of and all that deep stuff. But overall, yeah, versus being dead. So yeah, as well, yeah, that's just dealing with the deceased, you know, and you know, it's dealing with the deceased, and it's dealing with all this stuff concerning the spirit realm of things, and overall just the deceased, you know, and the people beings that you consider dead and all that stuff. They're not dead. They're not dead at all. You know, once again, a majority of them are still a part of the earth realm. And like I said, if they're wicked and all that stuff, they're seeking revenge on the living and certain individuals. So whether you people believe this or not. And yeah, you know, and see also too, with being dead versus being dead, like what you gotta understand is a lot of people are, once again, alive concerning the earth realm, and they're spiritually dead. They have no, they have no spiritual life in them. That's what you gotta understand. And I'm talking about in God and Jesus, you know, they're just walking around, all that stuff. So that's what I'm saying. These people who are in the earth realm, they don't have God, don't have Jesus, you know, reject him, all that stuff. These are the people that are dead. That's what you gotta understand. And see, when they enter the spirit realm and leave the earth realm, you know, they're pretty much going to enter the second death. And these very tall angels will be throwing them into the lake of fire. You know, it's not a game. So the people that you people consider dead and all that stuff, once again, they're not. They're not. That's what I'm saying. They're not. The deceased and the beings and people that leave the earth realm, they're not dead at all. They're not. They're not, is what I'm telling you. But the very people who are walking in the earth realm and, you know, outside of God and God's spirit, don't have God, don't have his spirit, don't have a relationship with him, these are the very people that are dead. That's what you got to understand. And see, they're on their way to the second death too. And that's just eternal suffering is what you got to understand. So yeah, versus being dead, once again, yeah, I mean, yeah, majority of beings and people are dead. They're walking around. They're a part of the Walking Dead, is what I'm trying to say. And it's not a game with the stuff. It's very intense. And yeah, I don't have any parts in this stuff, you know. I don't, you know. And God's elect don't either. But what I'm telling, and pure souls don't either. But everybody else, yeah, they're a part of, you know, being dead, as you people be, you know, as you people be, you know, getting caught up with, you know, on the surface with things, you know. But yeah, the beings that are deceased and all that stuff and moved on from the earth realm, a lot of them are very much still a part of the earth realm. And see, you know, the pure souls that are a part of heaven and all that stuff, you know, they assist God's elect and, you know, certain family members even too, you know. They will, I want to say, like, they will pretty much do things according to God's will. And I just want to say, like, God's spiritual people and people who are part of heaven, they will bear witness with them and all that deep stuff, you know, angels and all that deep stuff too. You know, So the pure souls who left the earth realm and loved God, all that deep stuff. They will bear witness with God's elect and all that deep stuff. And everybody else though is just pretty much a part of the Walking Dead. That's what you gotta understand. So yeah, versus being dead. These people who in the earth realm and they're outside of God, Jesus, and don't have a relationship with God, don't have God's spirit, all that deep stuff. Yeah, these are the people and beings that are dead. It doesn't matter if they have the breath of life or anything. What I'm telling you is they're still dead because they don't have God. They don't have a relationship with God. They reject God, all that stuff. And see, Satan, once again, I keep telling you, Satan is spiritual. So he's aware of this matter as well, too. Excuse me. And yeah, man, what you gotta understand is that these people are spiritually dead, and they're they're overall just in Satan's hands too. That's what you gotta understand too. And them going into the spirit realm and leaving the earth realm, they're pretty much going to be handed over to Satan. And Satan is just laughing about these matters because he knows that majority of beings and people are dead and all that stuff. And this has nothing to do with this other stuff with you people, RIP and all this stuff. It has nothing to do with that because, once again, these people are not dead. They're not. They're not. The deceased are not dead. They're not dead. The beings that are the people who are outside of God, outside of God's spirit, and all that deep stuff. Those are the people. And these people are the very people walking around and all that crazy stuff that you people, so I'm saying, but majority of these people, they're not, they're not alive. That's all I'm saying. And yeah, so yeah. But yeah, I'm about to close this out. And so many blessings to God's elect and God's spiritual believers and followers. You very much are alive, and you already have eternal life too in Jesus. May you endure to the end for Jesus, with Jesus, and may Jesus keep your name in the book of life for you very few people this applies to and beings. Everybody else, you're outside of this stuff. You're on your way to hell. So you people who getting caught up with all this stuff on the surface and all this stuff, okay, keep doing that stuff. But I understand that the deceased are very much interacting with the living, a lot of the deceased, and then others are in different parts of the spirit realm and all that deep stuff. But overall, the deceased are not dead. That's what I'm trying to tell you. So, and see, I know this too on a spiritual level, but everything is not for you people. But just know that I know this stuff on a spiritual level, humbly speaking. And yeah, they are very much interacting with the living and many other things too in the spirit world. And depending on who they are and all that stuff is determining what they're doing, whether it be of God or pretty much of the enemy, depending on what kind of person they are, what kind of soul they are, will determine what they're doing. Either way it goes. Eternity is very real, and the spirit realm is very real. It's amongst the earth realm, and there's all different deep parts of the spirit world, and heaven and hell is still a relevant thing too as well. And eternity is very real, is what you gotta understand. So versus being dead, yeah, they're not dead at all. I already told you and mentioned the beings that are very much dead, and they're spiritually dead. That's what you gotta understand. And yeah, these people who you people consider that stuff, them people are actually more alive than than That's what I'm telling you. That's what I'm basically saying. They're more alive than and they're more alive than these people walking around, the deceased, and yeah. So, God truly just led me to get more in depth with this stuff and see, I'm already knowing all this stuff, humbly speaking. So yeah, you people who, you get caught up with the surface, and you people just better be careful about who you speak about and what you're talking about, what you give into, because I'm telling you now that the spirit realm is very real, And it's a lot more realer than this realm, the earth realm. That's what I'm telling you. It's a lot more realer. And overall, once again, the deceased are not dead. They're not dead at all. And they're doing different things depending on what soul, depending on what souls are pure and what souls are not pure, and who they are and who they were and who they are as well as a person, all that deep stuff. You know, who they are is going to determine what they do, and if they're punished or if they're in hell, people, or heaven too. So yeah, and in these different parts of hell and different parts of heaven and different parts of the spirit world. So all this stuff determines on who they are. You know, all this deep stuff. But yeah, so yeah, with all that being said, I'm about to close this out. But yeah, versus being dead. Majority of beings will remain dead spiritually, and yeah, just under God's wrath and punishment. And everybody who's not drawn into God's kingdom, they will just be remaining spiritually dead and on their way to hell. You know, whether people agree with this or not. So, you know, it's not about all that stuff. You know, I'm not about the emotions and all that crazy stuff. I keep telling you, God does not care about that. You know, he cares about his kingdom, his truth, his full truth, and that's it, people. So I understand that these people, once again, they're not dead, and a lot of them are still interacting with the earth realm. Certain souls, they cannot fully move on too, and all this stuff too. See, I'm being led by the Spirit before I close this out. Yeah, a lot of certain souls, they can't fully move on. You know, I keep telling you people about ghosts and all that stuff. You know, and there's different types of ghosts. You know, but this ain't even about all that. But I'm just being led to say these things too, and see, you know. So, you know, and God is punishing certain individuals and souls. It all depends who they are. That's what you gotta understand. Whether they inherit heaven or they're a part of hell or a certain part of the spirit world, and certain souls are still pending and, you know, interacting with the living too before they go to their eternal, I want to say destiny, rather be heaven or hell, people. You know, and many other parts of the spirit world too. But overall, it's still heaven or hell, people, overall. So yeah, you know. But yeah, with all that being said, yo, I'm out.